In other news, in Gauteng, there's now a plan to extend the lines and the infrastructure around the Gautrain to try and make it bigger, and I suppose better, so that it will have a bigger impact on the province, particularly around Joburg, Tshwane and O.R. Tambo International. For the moment, those who favour the Gautrain would say it's reduced traffic between Joburg and the airport, but for many people, it's obviously very expensive to use. It's a huge capital project to undertake. Jesse Harber is an infrastructure and urban development specialist. Jesse, good afternoon to you. How would you assess the way the Gautrain has actually operated since it started? Has it succeeded? Has it changed Gauteng in the years it's been operating, do you think?
Hi, Stephen. Thanks for having me. The question of whether Gautrain has succeeded is a difficult one. But the key thing is that it broke the seal on that sort of major transport capital project in this country. It was a worthwhile thing to do. It was an important thing to do. But it really just had to be the start of a bigger project. It's of very little value as it exists now. The whole point of these systems is to form a network, and we have to keep building out the Gautrain in order to make it the success that it needs to be.
So there are plans now to go to Cosmo City, to go through Randburg. Are those plans the right plans? Is the Gautrain going in the right direction, if not at 160 kilometers an hour?
The question of exactly where to run the Gautrain is a technical one, and really depends on some quite sophisticated modelling of who's likely to ride it and the impact it's going to have around there. But broadly, an east-west link is what's needed. Public transport systems work best when they're balanced between north-south and east-west links, and ideally you would have a grid. It already runs east to our Tambo, and Randburg in particular is an important economic node, and it makes sense to link that into the Gautrain system.
So you talk about it linking up, forming a network. What kind of network are you talking about? Are you talking about linking up with other forms of public transport, metro bus, metro rail, if we ever get that sorted out, that kind of thing?
Yes, absolutely. The Gautrain itself is, we can speak of as a network, although not enough of one yet. But the public transport network as a whole needs to work really closely together. And that, I will say, is one area where the Gautrain has not done well and needs to do better. The fact is there's a potentially very effective rail link already from Soweto to Johannesburg CBD to, in fact, Park Station, where the Gautrain also runs. And that's Metrorail. And they are leaving ridership on the table by not integrating tightly with that connection. Similarly, Rea Vaya and the other BRTs in the province are insufficiently integrated with Gautrain. And there needs to be much more done to make sure that you can get on any one of these modes of transport and get off in a distant part of the province from another, and it's as seamless, as easy, as fast, and as cheap an experience as possible.
There's a huge, would it be very difficult to do that? Are they using, what's the word, gauge, the same rails? There's also an issue around sort of the integration of bus systems. So we have the Gautrain bus system at the moment, which I presume doesn't talk to other bus systems. In a perfect world, you would want to be able to take a minibus taxi, or a Rea Vaya bus, or a Gautrain bus, or a railway or whatever. You might want to make one journey with 3 different forms of transport, or using the same ticket.
Exactly. The gauge, no, Gautrain does not use the same gauge as Metrorail, but that doesn't matter. You don't need the same physical train to run throughout the network. You just need to make it very easy to get from one train to the other. Similarly, the ticket, as you say, is incredibly important. That's harder to get right across multiple modes of transport, but it's not impossible. And the fact is that we now have multiple ticket standards operating across public transport networks, in public transport modes in Gauteng, and there really needs to be some sort of alignment between them. The newly formed Transport Agency for Gauteng, that's one of the first things they should be looking at, these matters of integration that can't be driven by a single mode, that has to come through coordination between them.
Jesse, there's another issue, which is that these are very expensive things to do. This is a big capital project. We have a government that doesn't have much money. The Gautrain already operates at a loss. We have, how do I put this politely, a difficult and complicated political situation. Transport capital projects tend to be long-term. Politicians, I think, are becoming more short-termist. That may just be my view. Is this really the right moment to invest all of this money?
Yes, absolutely. The fact is you can't look at it in isolation. It's not just about will this money be spent on Gautrain or not. It is a matter of what else it is likely to be spent on. And the fact is that we pour just vast sums in capital and operating subsidy into our roads every year, and that's disproportionate. Just the amount that the national government tops up the road accident fund every year to cover one of the externalities of road transport is greater than all public transport spending in the country combined. When you're asking whether something's affordable, you have to say compared to what and what else might the money be spent on.
And I suppose, Jesse, when it comes to things like climate change, public transport's always better than everyone having their own car.
There's no question. The fact is that electric cars are going to make a difference, but the marginal difference that they make is vastly smaller than getting people out of cars and into almost any form of public transport. Trains are the best, but buses are still fantastic. Even if they're burning the dirtiest diesel, they're enormously better for climate change than cars. And similarly, minibus taxis are better than private cars as well. It's just a matter of capacity. And all of these modes need to be electrified, but fundamentally people need to be moving to higher capacity nodes. And we need to be making it attractive for people to move to that. And there's no way we can do that without projects such as the Gautrain.
Jesse Harber, thank you, Infrastructure and Urban Development Specialist. Really do appreciate it.